Mike, turn your games down.
Hi, we're episode of 201 of Games My Mom Found. I am Mike Albertin, and who is with me tonight?
I'll go first, I guess.
Yeah,
I'm
sorry.
Ben, a tall person and Klonona fan extraordinaire.
And you are the owner of Overblood2.com.
That's right. That's how we became friends. Obviously, we can probably tell by my voice we're not local to one another, but that's how we became friends. Yeah.
No, you are in the great country of England.
That's correct. Yeah, slap bang in the middle of it.
And my other special guest.
I am Phil Theobald, short person, but also a Klonona fan.
And me, a guy who never played Klonoa until this past week on a Steam Deck.
Well,
So,
I'm glad you finally got a chance to.
me too. I'm glad I was able to play it handheld too.
Oh, nice.
How is the Steam Deck, by the way? You enjoying that?
Oh God, I love it. I got ROMs on it, and it's perfect. I just gotta get better at playing with settings so I can have save states for everything. But having ROMs on a portable thing like that is just great.
Yeah, a pal of mine got one recently. A little bit jealous.
It's a wonderful emulation machine. And I'm playing old PC games just like you should do on a brand new device.
Nice. Nice.
So you pay $400 and you buy a $100 memory card, and you go, and the first thing you want to do is play Vampire Survivors and Klonoa. So
That's what I do.
and Portal 2. Portal 2 was the first game on it because
Oh,
it
very
just
nice.
felt right because it was Valve and Steam.
It
I'm like,
almost-
I'll play Portal 2 again.
It almost feels like that should come pre-installed on it.
It should. There's also a exclusive game that Valve made to Aperture Deck or something, or Aperture Desk Job. You can play it on computer too, but they made it because of the Steam Deck.
Oh, okay.
I haven't played it yet, but it exists.
Nice.
All right, but we are here to talk about Klonoa Door to Phantomile that came out back in 1997 for PlayStation 1. And I played the PS1 version, but I'm assuming, did both of you play the remake that recently came out?
I did.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I'm about 3/4 of the way through it. I don't know if you've finished it yet, Phil. I'm not quite there yet.
I actually finished it last night.
Oh,
Nice.
nice.
I was very proud of myself.
And I assume since you're playing, I'm assuming the remake doesn't come with save states and cheating ways.
No. You gotta get good, as the kids say.
That don't work out so well for me in platformers. I can beat Bloodborne. I can beat Dark Souls 1 and 2. I cannot beat platformers for the life of me.
Goodness.
I just cannot do it. I'm terrible at platformers.
I'll be honest. I played the original back when it first came out, and in the late '90s. Loved it, of course. But and then I played the Wii remake when that came out as well. But I will say that I had forgotten how difficult this game can be.
Okay.
Yeah, playing through the new what is it, the Fantasy Reverie version.
Yeah.
And I was playing it on the Switch, and yeah, by the end of the game, it gets tricky.
Mm-hmm.
It gets really tough.
Yeah, I think I can definitely agree with that. I'm kind of exactly the same. I played it when I was younger, and then recently picked it up when Mike kindly got in touch about this. And I think I'm kind of at the point now where the game kind of gets difficult. It's kind of a steady, probably around, I guess, like the fifth level, the area where you go up to the clouds. I think it is. There's a notable spike in difference from difficulty for me there. That's sort of where I am now.
See, I'm glad it's not just me, because at first I thought, because I'm the guy who never even beat Mario 3, for like an example. I'm just not. Platformers had never been my style of game. I mean, I played them over the years, but I played all of them, and then all the great ones like Mario World, stuff like that. But I've just never been able to. I'm never good at finishing them. I get to a certain point where I'm like, okay, this is getting too hard. Let's go on and play an RPG where I can level up. That was me as a kid. Now, I mean, once the 360 generation comes on, everything gets easier, and that's what I love personally. But like Klonoa, I mean, I never really heard much about this game. Like I've heard Phil talk about it before on Player One podcast. I've heard people mention it before. It's something, but I've never thought much about it. And then it actually wasn't even due to the remake coming out. It was just due to a friend of mine, or a good friend of mine on the show, Michael Hughes, that said, "Hey, we should play Klonoa." I'm like, all right. And then I think the game gave him like motion sickness or something with a 2.5D. Just kind of, he didn't like it or something like that. So then but I'm like, all right, it's already on the show. I got guess. I'll play it. And I came into it with no expectation, nothing. And it's a really charming, pretty 2.5D platformer on PS1 still. Like it's still a pretty game.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. I would definitely say it holds up. The original still holds up now. I was actually surprised by the remake, how kind of seamless it was. Obviously, it looks a lot cleaner. But one thing I was interested in, Mike, because you said kind of you'd not heard much about this. That's one thing I was interested to ask both of you. Obviously, not being in America, was this game kind of popular on the PlayStation at the time it came out, or because I'm similar? I don't think I ever met anybody when I was a kid who kind of had a copy of this game. Everybody had Crash Bandicoot, everybody had Croc and stuff, but nobody had this. Was it the same with you guys?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah,
I didn't even know it
Go
existed, to be honest.
Yeah. I will be honest. The only the reason I first became familiar with this game was, and I'm a fair bit older, I believe, than both of you.
I'm 34.
When
I'm
this
35.
game came out, you guys are talking about, I played this back when I was a kid. When I played this game, I was working at the official U.S. PlayStation magazine.
Oh.
And I was doing freelance work for them at the time. And one of my jobs was to look at the contents of each month's demo disc, because this was one of the magazines that included a demo disc with games on it you could play on your PlayStation, and then write little blurbs about each one just to let the readers know what is on the disc. And one month there was this Namco platformer called Klonona, Door to Phantomile, and I had never heard of it before and was just like, okay, I guess I'll see what this is. So I popped in the demo disc and started playing it, and I forget exactly what was on the demo, if it was just like maybe the first level, maybe the first two, but I was blown away immediately. Just, whoa, this game is beautiful. It's super charming. The music's great. And it was the mechanics, the enemy grabbing and jumping mechanics were really, really clever and really fun. And that sort of set me off the path of being a Klonoa fan. But yeah, as a whole, nobody in this country cared.
Okay, so it wasn't just me. Okay, because God, like this would have came out. I know I said the year earlier, but yeah, I would have been younger, and I don't even. All my friends were we were in RPGs at the time, Final Fantasy stuff like that. That was our thing, and maybe Metal Gear Solid at some point. I know we got into that, but yeah, I never heard of Klonoa. So okay,
I guess the physical's pretty expensive for you guys as well, then.
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't collect games anymore, other than I collect Steam icons that I can install on a computer and never play. That's about out now. But like, I'm glad I don't collect games physical. Also, like, this wasn't one that was like, I guess this was on the PS3. This was also like, this was remade for the Wii, which I know is also like, I think ridiculously expensive now too.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad I'm always happy when any game gets remade in some form, because like I've been watching videos of the remake and it looks just a very cleaner, prettier version than what I played. It doesn't look like it was a big, like they didn't change a whole lot. It's just the same game, just way prettier.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I was kind of pleasantly surprised. There's obviously always the tendency with remakes to mess with stuff a little bit too much, and I think particularly for I think like you said earlier, it still kind of holds up very well.
I mean, I
don't really need it to change much.
Like, I played other PS1 platformers. I played Spyro for the show not too long ago. That still holds up. And then I think I played Super Mario 64, which did not hold up for me personally. But I also had no nostalgic for that. But it's like, this is a game, like, this game still looked pretty. It still plays well. I mean, it took me a little bit to get used to, like, the idea that because it is a 2.5D platformer and the content changes. Like, the plane, it does a good job of changing the planes where you're at, like, oh, this one goes left, so now you're heading towards a different area of the screen. Like, it does a good job of that. And when I did first play this, I did jump on an enemy and get hurt right away. I'm like, oh, not that good. So, that was the first thing I did. I jumped on a moo and nothing happened.
So just interested, how long did it take you to total this thing?
Oh, to what?
To complete it, to finish.
Oh, with save states and everything, I'm not sure. Maybe 5 hours of gameplay, my guess is, or so.
Okay.
Yeah, I like I said, I just finished the Switch version, the remake, last night, and my total playtime, and again, no save states or anything, but just under 4 hours.
Okay.
Oh, good job.
Nice.
Oh, thank you.
It took me. Sometimes my brain couldn't comprehend the way to play this. Like, there were a couple parts, especially near the end, where you had to hit a big moo and then make him bigger and then jump on him, and I had to watch a video because I couldn't figure out that puzzle. So I'm like, I didn't know I could make him get big and then jump on him. I thought he would hurt me, so I didn't touch him.
Oh, jeez.
Right. Okay.
So it took a
Interesting.
second.
Interesting. Yeah.
But I feel like this game, like the whole concept of what you do with enemies, because you can't jump on them, you have to you grab them. You have like a grab attack, and you can grab them, and they're like a big ball above your head, and you can either use them to attack other enemies, or you can use them for an extra double jump, essentially. And to me, it felt like a unique concept for platformers, because I don't think I played another platformer that was like this.
Yeah. Fair. I think I'd agree with that. Yeah. I don't think there's any similar mechanics sort of in any other game that I've played.
It was just funny to me when I tried jumping the enemy and failed. And I feel like it works well. I think the levels are very creative, like the way you do it. I know there's a whole story in this game. I was paying attention to some of it, and I know some people have a really big history with it, like when it came to what the story meant and everything. I was watching reviews, because the one thing I like to do, I like to kind of get, especially in a game that I didn't experience, I like to get other people's takes on it and see what they thought of that game, what their history is, because I had none. So. And it's interesting. A lot of people really there were people on YouTube that had a lot of strong things to say about this series.
Yeah, I think it seems to be one of those series that people that like it really like it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think people that kind of played it at the time generally a positive response from what I've kind of read online and stuff. But that's always been quite difficult because, as I say, I've never really met anybody that's actually played it. So.
Oh, and Phil, do you still have do you have a copy of this for PS1? I know you're kind of a collector.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, okay. I don't collect as much games as I used to. And I did sell off a big chunk of my old game collection a while ago, but I certainly hung on to some of the kind of classics or ones that are important to me. So yeah, I definitely still have my PS1 Klonona. I have the Wii remake as well, and I actually have a few because there were a couple Klonona games that came out in Japan that were never released.
Okay.
The US. They might have been released in Europe. I'm not 100%. There was for the GBA, there was a Klonona role-playing game.
What?
It's true.
Oh.
Yeah. Gosh. I'm blanking on the name of it. But there is absolutely. I'm quickly looking it up right now. Oh, here we go. Klonona Heroes Densetsu no Star Medal. Legendary Star Medal.
Yeah, that says an English translation. I might have to look that up because I would like to play more. I'm going to play more Klonona at some point. Now I'm interested to try more of it.
And cool. You know what? Looking here, yeah, this one did not get released outside Japan, but I would not be surprised if there was some sort of fan translation.
Oh, there always there are so many times. Yeah. At this point.
Yeah, there's quite a few Klonona titles, isn't there? Because there's a volleyball game as well. I've never played it, but.
That's cool.
There were a couple GBA games that it took a while, but those did both get released in English. And then there's a game for the Wonder Swan, if you remember the Wonder Swan.
I do not.
Not personally.
I don't even know what the Wonder Swan is.
It was a portable system by Bandai.
Okay.
And Gunpei Yokoi, who used to be at Nintendo, the designer of the original Game Boy, among a zillion other incredible things, and perhaps somewhat infamously the Virtual Boy. But after he left Nintendo, he went to Bandai and helped develop this Wonder Swan system. Which,
that's cool.
It's
I mean, I'm assuming it's not good, but that's still cool that it exists.
Oh yeah.
I mean, in today's way, they just put ROMs on something else. At least you get to experience it.
Yeah.
Okay, I have to look up
Wonder Swan. There's a game for that as well.
Okay. It's impressive to me how, for a platform I had never even really knew anything about, that it has this much of how much history this little thing has.
Yeah.
Because it isn't something that's really talked about. I mean, I consider myself a pretty big gamer, but I was an RPG gamer until really the PS2 site. I got way more into the PS2, and then from there on, I went more in other things like 360, especially. I brought into shooters, became a big third-person fan of games, and this is a series that didn't really I mean, you have the Wii. I didn't even know there was a remake on Wii.
Oh wow!
I also hate the Wii, but that's
yeah. I didn't even know that either until I started looking up Klonona stuff the last couple of days.
That's cool though. I'm glad that especially in today's market, I'm glad that games are now that this game has been remade. It's on Steam. I mean, once you're on Steam, you're going to be on Steam in one way or another forever. So
right.
I mean, even if it takes it off Steam, it's still going to be somewhere available for PC. So it's not going to go away this time. But the gameplay itself, I feel like it's simple enough, but also, I mean, it's gonna be cliche, simple enough, but challenging as you learn the game. But it does a good job. Like, I mean, I probably could have figured this out over time and done it without save states. But when you play a game a week, you don't really want to spend hours doing the same level.
I think it's good how they and I certainly still think this now. I think it's quite good how many different kind of ways there are to use the very simple mechanics, because there aren't a lot of mechanics other than the kind of one that we talked about where you can kind of zap an enemy and use it as a projectile or to do a double jump. It's quite cool the way that they introduce that in a lot of different ways. There's stuff you've got to fire the projectiles in the background. I think we said earlier there's ones where you've got to kind of do multiple double jumps. In fact, I don't know if either of you guys have played the I guess you'd call it bonus level on there.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
That one is brutal.
Which one's the bonus level?
Called Baloo's Tower, I think it's called.
Oh,
is this only in the remake?
You have to unlock it. I'm not sure if it's in the remake. I would assume it is. But because in each of the levels there is like 6 Phantomilions.
Yeah.
I want to say, is that right?
Yeah, the little like villagers that you have to rescue.
Yeah, they're in like the little bubbles that you shoot them out of.
Right.
Or ignore them.
Yeah, if yeah, or that. But I'm pretty sure it's if you get all of those in the game, there's a level that becomes available.
That's cool.
I need to go back. I did collect them all. I just did not play the bonus level apparently.
Yeah, so that one's I remember playing it like briefly, and I went back and watched a video of it earlier, and it was kind of one of those situations where I was like, was it really as difficult as I remember it being? And it still looks kind of brutal now. Like, I think in the normal playthrough of the game, there's probably only a couple of situations where you use more than sort of a double jump, if you want to call it that. Whereas on this one, it is just one after another, and it's pretty infuriating. I mean, you start off the level and it gives you like 10 lives pretty much straight away. So that's kind of an indication of
Okay, I like when games have that, like a platformer has a super hard thing, but it's put away somewhere else that you only get it if you unlock it. I like it when games do that and it's not part of the game and forcing me to want to murder the game.
You earn it.
I'm okay with that.
Extra challenge if you want it.
Yeah, I like when that's there. I mean, because some people, hell, when I was younger and like especially in the PS2 era when I was in high school, so I didn't really work yet. I liked it when a game had more stuff. Like, okay, I can make more use of my $30 game I just bought. That I won't get another one for a few weeks, like at my next page. Well, I had like a part-time job, but like it's nice. I mean, now as an adult, I'm like, I just want the game to be quick and done. But but no, I like when games have that, especially during this era when you're catering, you're giving people more stuff for their money. And a platformer doesn't have as much to begin with because it's a platformer. So that's good.
And this is a relatively short one too.
Yeah. Which was nice. It's not a super long game. I mean, I can definitely see there being, replay in it, like to go through it again. Like I didn't go for all the unlock animals. I don't know the PS1 version if you keep replaying levels or not. I don't think you can. I think the game just keeps progressing.
I think you're right. I think that's another thing that you might unlock is the level select if you do something in the game. I'm not sure, or maybe that's just a cheat code. I'm pretty sure there was something where you can get a level select, but it's not like there natively. Yeah.
It could have been. I mean, for me, when I beat the game and the credits rolled, I went, "Oh, that's nice," and I deleted it off my Steam Deck and moved on. But it wasn't for lack of. I just had to get on the next thing. But that's cool.
Can we talk about the villain in this game?
Sure.
Because that's one thing that I really liked. To say that this is like a platformer, and I know, like you said earlier, Mike, there's kind of a lot of the people that really like this game. There's quite a lot of backstory to it and what have you, but. There's just the main villain on his own. I always thought for a platformer was pretty creepy.
Yeah,
you kind of used to your sort of like your enemies in Sonic and even Dr. Neo Cortex. They're kind of cartoonishly villain-like, whereas Guardius in Klonona I feel like was a genuine attempt to make like quite an intimidating foe.
That's fair.
He's genuinely kind of creepy.
Yeah, and the way that he talks as well. Like, I know that none of them, for anybody that's not played, that there are kind of like there is dialogue that you have to read, but Klonona doesn't actually speak, and none of the other characters actually speak, do they? They all just kind of make different noises.
It's kind of a weird sort of like made up language.
Yeah. And Guardius obviously has this made up language, which is kind of creepy enough, but most of the characters in the game are obviously like what you would probably expect from a game that has that kind of color palette. They're very bright and cheerful and very high pitched, and Guardius is not like that. He's got a very creepy voice. He's got a really creepy aesthetic about him. I always thought that was kind of probably quite a brave move for a game that's obviously intended for a young audience.
Yeah. I mean, he's got the crescent moon face helmet thing on, and yeah, he is a real creepy. And like, I love his little buddy for some reason. I really like Joka. Like, I thought that little guy, he looks like a little jester thing, and he's constantly giving you boss fights for the most part and failing and always a step ahead of you. I really liked him in this. I don't know what it was, but he's a cool little sprite. I mean, not sprite, but model.
He is cool. One thing I don't want to, I'm not going to pretend that I'm some sort of Klonona knowledge base or anything, but one thing I did read on the internet, which was quite interesting, about the original intended design for Guardius was, what is it described as here? I've got it in front of me. Described as a magical-esque clown, and he kind of looks like a really large, evil, menacing Joker character.
Okay.
And I think they kind of obviously tried to make it a little bit more friendly in some ways. So I think Joker kind of is quite a good bridge between the kind of colourful landscape and aesthetic of the game and Guardius that's quite evil.
Yeah. It was one thing, speaking of the villain there, one of the changes, and it's just a graphical change, but there is a slight change between the PlayStation original and like the newly released remake that I was very disappointed by. Was in the original version, is it Guardius?
Yeah.
His body is just this kind of long cloak. This big long flowing cloak, and he will occasionally sort of open it up to suck in, like when he kidnaps Lafise at the beginning of the game.
Yep.
He sort of flings open his coat, and it's just kind of an inky void inside. But usually like there's like kind of like swirling stars, and it looks like there's like a galaxy or something inside his cloak.
That's cool.
And it's a really cool, and again kind of adds to that sort of eerie aesthetic of him. He does not have the universe or the stars inside his cloak in the new versions. It's just kind of it's just kind of like a little multicolor mass or something like that. It's not quite as striking of an aesthetic.
Budget cuts,
or maybe just somebody because that was cool. Like, I did like it when the few times I saw him. I did like the fact that he had the galaxy in his cloak, and as you understand the ending of this game, as we'll talk about later, like that it all fits. That's cool. It's kind of a bad thing to take away because it's part of the aspect of the game of what's really going on. One question that maybe one of you two can answer for me better is, because in this game you have the little ball Hugh Powell that is your buddy. Is that what giving you the ability to grab people? It's him.
Yes.
Okay. Because
he's living in your ring.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that's what gives you the sort of enemy grabbing power.
Okay, I think I missed the first cutscene I missed a couple cutscenes by accident because I pressed start when I didn't mean to. So
yeah.
So I was like, I'm just gonna press start because I'm gonna pause the game. Oh, it's a cutscene. Oops. Okay. That happened a few times.
That's the worst, by the way. If you don't know if your game lets you pause cutscenes or not.
Yeah.
Thankfully, the game I'm playing for 2 weeks from now, Metal Gear Solid 4, left me pause the cutscenes because they never end.
But they kind of have to, yeah. Some of those cutscenes.
Oh God,
go on
yes.
for like half an hour.
That's what I got going on shortly. So I'm trying to play through that game. I'm also watching a video of the remake, and I seen in the Phantom the new release. I seen in there that you actually have more health too. I see that they because the health bar in this game in the original PS1 version you have 3 hearts. Each heart takes 2 hits. You have essentially 6 hits. And I see with the remake you have 5 hearts, and they take more than 2 hits to destroy a heart, that makes me happy that they made the game easier if you want it to be.
I think There are different difficulty settings in the new version.
Yeah,
Nice.
I think that. Yeah, I think that's new, isn't it? That wasn't in the original.
It's in the original. It's just whatever the game is. You don't get to choose the difficulty, which I love being able to choose a difficulty because I go for whatever the easiest baby difficulty is that any game offers.
Yeah.
So
That's what I do these days myself.
you have to. I mean, when you get now we're adults, like you don't have the time.
When you said you completed it in around 4 hours, I was kind of thinking, I need to speed up because I'm only at 4 hours now. But I'm going hardcore.
Now,
I'm going hardcore.
This one, I didn't do the easiest difficulty. I did the standard difficulty on this one.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, because I believe the easiest difficulty on the Klonona remake, it gives you infinite lives.
Yep, that's what they have in the speedrun. I'm watching,
which I did not have infinite lives on this. So
I like infinite lives
until the end. But
I've kind of played it through that many times now that if I lose a life, I kind of get a little bit annoyed at myself, to be honest.
I know, right?
Yeah. Do you know that the one that always catches me out is actually is it the third level where you're first in the jungle?
Vision 3 is the jungle, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know why that one always seems to catch me out whenever I play it. I actually still play Klonona quite a lot on handheld now, so I was playing it before I played the remake, and yeah, that one caught me out a few times.
That's another thing. The levels, I think, are pretty well different. Like, the jungle stuff is really pretty. It does a good job of identifying at different places, and I think everything just looks so good and so fun. And it really took me a while to get into the handle the concept of you grab an enemy and you have to throw them, away from the camera towards another plane of existence.
Oh yeah.
To make things happen. And that took me, even though the game does a great job of trying to show you, like, go do that all the time, it took me a bit sometimes to get into that habit of doing it.
Well, it is a relatively unique mechanic that you don't see very often in platformers, so your mind's just not really programmed to think of the game in that way.
Okay. No, that makes sense. I mean, that makes perfect sense. It also makes me feel less stupid, so thank you.
I think also as well when you're in and amongst the levels themselves, that you kind of have a little bit more time with it being a platformer to sort of get your bearings. I think when it really steps up is when you start seeing the bosses in the game, because they all, I think, all from memory, have some use of that mechanic, and it's different every time, or it's a variation of it every time. So some of the bosses in this game can be quite difficult when you first try them.
Oh yeah.
The first boss, I think, does a good job of introducing you to what you're playing and how the game works. Like, you have like every boss, I want to say, has like where you have something you can grab. Like the first boss, he's spawning Moos, which are the little basic enemy. You have to grab them, and then he moves around in a circle that you can move around too, and it's the idea that you have to just shoot him in the butt because he's not protected in the butt.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and it's a good concept for a first boss too, because it teaches you the way the game works. Like, you can run around to him, or you can throw the enemy, and the enemy will spiral around the circle with him.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it does a really good job of teaching you the mechanics of this game. I mean, the game, to me, felt like it did a decent job of teaching me how to play, and we were saying that you have people you can rescue. You have lots of little things that you can then do. And like, I didn't know at first you could break bubbles just by using your attack.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
I thought I had to get enemies to break bubbles. I'm like, oh, okay, I need enemies to break eggs, but not bubbles.
Yeah, and I think actually now I think of it, the new one has kind of a sort of, I guess, a tutorial system built into it. So when you start playing the game, it kind of explains to you, what the different types of eggs are, and that you have to throw projectiles, and that you can do that, facing Klonona's bum to the screen instead of side to side.
I don't think the PS1 version had much of a tutorial, or I didn't pay attention.
No, I don't think it does have any now.
Okay. Oh, Phil, I have a question for you. Back when this was like in the demo thing, or when you in the magazine, was there any hype around this game coming out here?
Not really. I mean, like I was saying, when I saw that demo disc, that was the first I'd ever heard about it. It's not like Namco was hyping it up or anything beforehand. Okay. And even afterwards, you didn't really see anything about it. I'm trying to think if there were a couple like print ads, but they didn't hype up the game that much.
Which is sad.
Yeah, because it's pretty immediately charming when you see it. It's a very pretty game, especially back then. It was a really nice looking game.
Yeah, it really is pretty.
Yeah.
I mean, like that was something that I went into and I was really kind of blown away by just how pretty it is still. And I mean, I play a lot of retro games for the show, and some are really ugly. PS1 is not the best. PS1 64 is not the best era to go back to, by the way.
Oh no, you're absolutely right.
I think you do. I think though you do have kind of have more of an appreciation for how game developers and creators had to be creative in new ways to get the most out of limited hardware. I always think it's quite admirable when you play something like Klonona and it still holds up today because they obviously, just thought about how they could make it as beautiful as possible with what they have.
Oh yeah.
I mean, plus I've said this before, and I'll always say it. It has a lot to do. It has to do with like the era. PS1 64 era, the polygon didn't age as well like sprites have. Like sprites still look beautiful for Super Nintendo a lot sometimes. Like you have some game that just like some of the RPGs just stand out still. Final Fantasy VI, for example, still amazing. And like, I mean, when I played Spiral, Spiral was all right, and it's still pretty. Like you played Metal Gear Solid, that game is awesome, but God, it does not look good anymore. So, I mean, those are ugly ass polygons, but I mean, it's still a great game. But like, just polygons just don't look the same as we've been introduced to new things. And Klonona didn't have that effect. Oh, Klonona, one thing we also, for the jumping, you also have a small hover, which really reminded me of Yoshi and Yoshi's Island for some reason. All that went through my head, but it's not very good hover. Okay, like that's just what I saw.
Well, and it's one of those things too with these polygonal games, and you're right. It's very rare for an older polygonal game to hold up visually these days, just because it's so easy to just look at them with the lower polygon counts, and it just kind of looks like a blocky mess. But some games, when the artists understand how to best use the limited polygons they have, and especially how to draw really good textures to slap on them, it goes a long way. Like this game really took advantage of the polygon count. They had really good artists doing the textures. Something like the Mega Man Legends games.
Oh God, yes. Still
look really, really pretty. You can say what you want about the Mega Man Legends.
I love both of them, by the way.
And you know what? I like the first one, but I really, really like the second one. And I know they're not everyone's cup of tea, which is fine. But whatever you think of the gameplay, they still look great.
Yeah.
I mean, they look primitive, certainly, but the aesthetic of the models and of the texture work still holds up and still looks really nice. And Klonona is the same way.
Yeah, agree.
And that was just surprisingly. I mean, one thing I want to talk about is the second boss fight where you fight a whale, or maybe not a whale, whatever the hell, this dolphin looking thingy, and like it's a pretty fight. Like, and it's very third dimensional because, it fits that 2.5D stuff and makes it feel three dimensional because she jumps out of the screen at you, and the only way to hurt her is either throw, which I didn't know this until after I watched videos, throwing the moos at her when she's in the water. I thought I could only hurt her when I grabbed the enemy off a spike and then threw him when she jumped towards me, which I missed a lot more because of that too. So, but it's very pretty. Like they did a good job of making how everything looks, and I really, really appreciate that. And that's a fun boss fight too. I like how you rescue her I think her son, and then you're like, oh, my mother, and she's being corrupted to be evil and work with Joka.
Yeah. Yeah, and also one thing that I don't think we've mentioned yet, which kind of goes hand in hand with the overall aesthetic of the game, is the music.
Oh yeah,
like the music is, I don't think I think quite a lot of people do it nowadays, but Klonona is one of those games where I can legitimately listen to the music just on its own, because it's just really, I mean, it's so catchy and it just sounds great. It fits so perfectly well. Sometimes you get good music in video games that doesn't necessarily fit the situation, but wow, Klonona just gets the music totally, totally right. And that's one of the main things that I'm really glad they didn't screw around with in the remake. and just lifted it, because if they'd have tried to do anything to change it too much, that would have been really, that would have taken away a lot of the kind of Klonona immersion that you get from playing the game. The music's great.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it perfectly sets that sort of just relaxed, dreamlike mood they're going for with the game.
Yeah, definitely.
I had it off most of the time.
How dare you?
I play a lot of games without music. Plus, it helped when you're constantly loading save states. It's just nice not to hear music. So, but yeah, that's just a me thing. It's not to the game's fault, and it was the times that I was playing it were.
If any of your listeners are going to play, then don't do what Mike did.
No, listen to music. I mean, I also played this game at inopportune times where I could not have music playing. Let's just say because so we'll just put that out there. So it needed to be on silent. But it's just how I play games. I play when I can. But no, music. I did turn it on every so often because I wanted to make sure I at least heard a little bit of the music. And I did like what I hear. I just wasn't. It wasn't for me. It just didn't interest me. I mean, I have a very weird thing with game music because if it's not from like particular games that I played when I was a kid, I don't care about it. Like I'm very particular about my game. Otherwise, I have no connection. If I don't have a emotional connection to that music, I won't care to listen to it.
Okay.
No, I'll have sound on for some games. I try to play most games with sound if I can, but sometimes if I'm constantly loading, saving save states like I was in this, I don't like having music sound because you hear the same thing over and over again because you keep dying. Like I was watching the remake video. I really want to get the remake now because it just looks so much easier. Like this game, it did have a lot of checkpoints. I do want to say like this game had a good amount of checkpoints throughout levels where you hit a little clock and it checkpoints you. It just without the infinite lives, I would have died a lot more than I would have been comfortable with.
Yeah.
Because I tried playing this game legit at first without save states. I couldn't get save states. It was because I couldn't get save states to work on my Steam Deck. So I'm like, okay, I'll play legit for a little bit. And it didn't take me long before I was in Vision 2-2, I think, or something maybe. And I'm like, okay, I can't do this legit. Like I just died and had to start over. And I'm like, start the whole level over again. I'm like, I am not good enough. And I don't want to get good enough. So
that's very mature of you.
So I just cheated so I could get through it in time. But now that I'm seeing the remake, I'm like, yeah, when that goes on sale on Steam at some point, I am picking that up so I can play this game again a few years from now. I might, somehow play the other version where I can actually play through it much easier. Because that's one thing I love about modern day games, like the 360 era. They added so many checkpoints for most games. I can't remember what the third boss is in this game off the top of my head. I'm trying to figure it out, but I cannot remember. It'd be the one in the jungle.
Is it the one where you have to bounce on the springs over the big bud enemy? Is that the third one?
Oh god, yes.
Okay, yeah.
That was a cool fight. He's like a giant plant guy that Moos are just being sacrificed to you for some reason, and then you're
kind of on a platform, and there's like 6 springs that you can double jump up, and the only sort of vulnerable point on the enemy is for you to drop one of the projectiles into kind of the top of its mouth, which is facing upwards. That was probably a terrible description.
Yeah, it worked. I mean, hey, I'm watching it, but no, it's a giant plant like thing that goes back and forth, and you have to jump over it, and his weak spot is its giant mouth.
Yeah, that's a much more eloquent way of putting it. Yeah.
But the one thing I thought about this game constantly is like, God, Moos are really expendable. Like if he just didn't send this army of little enemies at you, he would have never saved the day. If he just didn't send his minions at you all the time.
That's actually a really good point.
Yeah.
I mean, just like, you know what? We're just not going to attack you because you can't do anything. So you're never going to see me. Because, even in the boss fights, they just didn't send minions after. He's like, oh, I'll just let the boss take care of you by himself. He doesn't need all these stupid minions. Game me over. But I just thought about that. Like, God, you're not a very good enemy. Boss here. Like, you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, that'd make it pretty difficult.
And I can't remember what the fourth. I remember the 5th boss because that one stood out to me. Okay, the 4th one. So Phil, maybe I wonder if you had the same thing. When I was playing the 4th boss fight, which is like a giant dragonfly weird thing, I kept thinking of Mystical Ninja when you fight the little guy on the kite.
Oh, I'm trying to remember, and I should remember this 4th boss.
It's some kind of like thing in the background, and then
is that where you're swinging backwards and forwards?
Yeah. And then you shoot. You have to grab the moos and throw the moos at him to hit the color pieces. But because of the way that the level was moving, it really made me think of Legend of Mystical Ninja Super Nintendo.
I could see that, yeah, because you're swinging in and out of the screen.
Yeah.
And you're dodging like columns that are being set up, so you got to kind of keep running back and forth as you're moving in and out. Yeah, I can totally see that, actually.
And I actually heard the music because I didn't have music on. I heard the music in my head from Mystical Ninja came out like, I'm like, oh. It's just it would pop in my head immediately. I was like, I want to play Mystical Ninja again. But it was a cool boss. I thought it did a really good job. Just again, how pretty everything looks. I'm gonna keep saying that.
Oh yeah.
And I think they were memorable boss fights too. I think this was another one that I think they're all pretty different too. in their own way. I mean, they use the same mechanic, but they're different enough.
Yeah, it's kind of like what Ben was saying before is they really took that relatively simple mechanic of grabbing and throwing enemies and finding a way to mix them up and make it feel like you are doing something different each boss fight.
I really like that.
For sure, and I think there's a good balance between using. Well, no, not necessarily a balance. I think there's like a good step up through all the bosses of how difficult those different ways that you use that mechanic are. It gets progressively, as you would probably expect, it gets progressively more difficult, but the ways that you have to defeat the bosses become more kind of, you have to think about each one a little bit more, I guess.
Oh yeah, no, I mean it's fair. I mean it teaches you, and the game gets harder like any platformer should, but it doesn't, like, especially watching the remake and seeing what the easy mode has with infinite lives and how much damage you take. Like, I really wish I would have played that version now, because I think I would have had a blast. I mean, I had fun, but I would have had a blast playing that version and not felt like I was cheating, because like
I would definitely say that it's a strange one for the remake, because I think the original holds up so well, but at the same time, I think I would probably advise, if someone was going to kind of step into this for the first time, I would probably recommend that they do try the new one. I don't know if you would agree with that, Phil. You obviously played it quite a while ago, so
yeah. No, you know what, I would have no problem just recommending people dive into the remake.
Yeah,
at this point,
it's just more quality of life, stuff, and that.
Yeah,
and when you make a game easier, because I mean, again, I'm assuming PS1 era still would have been the whole rental issue that creators had.
Yeah.
We don't want people beating our games in a rental period, not buying it, so we're going to make it harder so they can't beat it in rental period. Good old Super Nintendo Genesis did that. I know that. So, and I'm assuming it was a thing in PS1 era too. I can't remember offhand, but I'm assuming it's a thing. And I also found it was creative, like when you have, like, as you beat levels, you always have the book turning, and you see the little people that you saved, or in my case, sometimes there'd be no people that would pop up. Like, I was saving people at first when I thought there was a point, but when I realized the point was to make them on my little map, I'm like, I don't care. If you're there, I'll grab you. If you're out of the way, I ain't going for you. Like, you can just stay in. You can stay in the show.
Well done for realizing that was part of the mechanic where you're just not saving any of them.
I was like,
empty book.
Right. The awesome thing I did is I watched a speed run, and the speed run, he's not saving. I'm like, okay, so I don't have to save them for completion. And not like, because there's been some games that we played for the show where they're like, okay, if you don't do this part, now you got to go back and replay the game and rescue everybody and replay all the levels. Then I will. But this game, once I found out this game didn't make me do that, I'm like, oh, okay, we're not going to worry about it then. They can stay. They can stay there. So.
Yeah, I'm definitely making sure I save them all as I go through the remake at the moment.
Well, you're playing the game the way the game wants you to play it.
What can I say?
I just am a cold-hearted person, I guess, in gaming. I'm like, you can let those little polygons stay in the shell.
I'm a good lad. I
am not. But I can't remember what game. There was a game where I wasn't rescuing people or doing something that I was supposed to do, and I thought it was optional, and it turned out it wasn't optional, but I can't remember what game I was. I know it's happened to me a few times in games where, like, example, Spyro. I would rescue a certain amount of dragons. Once I got to a point where I found out I didn't have to rescue any more dragons, I did not go out of my way ever again. So, I was like, we're all done. All right.
Forgot that. It's been a while since I played Spyro.
Good game still. And then the fourth boss the fifth boss. We have fourth boss for Klonona. I can't remember what that was. No, fifth. Sorry, I'm on fifth. We did talk about fourth. Fifth was when you finally fight Joka, which I thought was funny because it's like the big villain turns him against you, even though he's not really. He's like, I don't want to fight. Turns him into a monster. And it's in the fifth world, they add a day-night cycle, which I wasn't a big fan of for this little area. Because you can't hurt enemies when you're in the night cycle and you fight ghosts that you can't hurt, that just chase after you. You can, like, bump away. And that was a little annoying to me because it was way more challenging.
Yeah. I think
those stages you end up with a lot of moving platforms that you kind of end up having to sort of stand around and wait for them to come back to you and that kind of thing.
I was just going to say about the moving platforms. Yeah, that's kind of the first time it introduces those. And I think that's kind of the first time I remember in the game that you kind of are forced to use the kind of floating hover thing. I know you mentioned earlier, Mike.
Yeah, you really have to in those. And you are right, because it's usually pretty useless.
Yeah. So sometimes it can make things a little bit harder because it's kind of not. I'm sure there are probably other games where you do have a brief hover, but it's not something terribly common. So like there's a few times even now where I get caught out by hovering when I shouldn't, or vice versa.
Yeah, there were many times.
Plenty of times.
I hovered when I shouldn't have and died. Or would have died. But because that was my brain was just I should hover after a jump when it's like, no, you really shouldn't. You should just end your jump because it ain't gonna help you very much, but cause you more issues. But I don't know, I just really I like that you finally get to fight Joka near the end. That, like, he's been giving you trouble throughout this entire game and sending these enemies at you, and he's always one step ahead of you. I'm assuming, because I know there's a cutscene at one point where, like, oh, that's Grandpa's house, and then you just watch Grandpa get killed.
Yeah.
His house get burned down.
Oh, yeah. It's pretty dark.
There's some dark parts of this game.
In fact, I was talking about the bonus level earlier.
Yes.
So there's a bit of dialogue in the general kind of plot of the bonus level is that Baloo takes Lepsy to the tower, to the tower, to the top of his tower, and you have to get up to the top and rescue her. And you get there, and it turns out that she's not interested in him romantically. And Klonona actually turns around and says, he's too old for her. So there are some adult themes in this game.
Okay. I did enjoy the last world, the 6-1, 6-2. I thought those were good, like, because there is a whole story of this game where you're rescuing different people from each of the different areas, and it kind of varies on the area that you're at, like what's all going on. Like you have just random people, and then you're in a sun temple at one point, and then it's at the end of Vision 5 before you get to the last section, you find out that your friend that's been with you, Hugh Powell, is actually part of these sky people or something like that. I think it's after that.
Yes, he's the Prince of Dreams.
All that went through my head is he was Mallow. Mario RPG. I'm like, oh, it's Mallow. Same idea. Turns out he's a prince.
Exactly.
But I think because you're like trying to rescue his family or something, right? In the end, because you're trying to save the dreams or something.
Yeah.
Whatever, something like that.
Yeah, they're trying to fill the world with nightmares.
But just become the reality.
We can't have that.
No. Okay, I paid attention to some of the story, but mostly I was just playing through the game and not really concerned.
Yeah, it's one of those that does have you do kind of have to keep up with it a little bit. But I do also think part of that is just naturally when you're inherently lazy, like myself and many other gamers are, you're forced to read text and go along at the same time. It naturally makes it a little bit kind of.
Well, my issue was I kept skipping cutscenes when I didn't want to, so I was a little confused with the story because I skipped things I didn't mean to skip. I read all the text.
That is actually another little tweak that they made in the remake is for skipping cutscenes and things. You kind of there's like an on-screen prompt now that lets you hold the button to kind of skip a section, but you can't really do it by accident. If that makes sense.
It does. I like that. I like being able to pause cutscenes in games in general. That's a big thing to me now because it's like sometimes I don't want to skip a cutscene. I'm trying to pause it for one reason or another because I have to do something really quick.
Sure.
And I don't want to skip. And that happened with this game where something would, I'm like, oh, I got to put it, I need to pause it. And I thought I'd be, and it was a cutscene when I didn't think it was. And I'm like, oh, well, there goes the cutscene. Because I did care. Like I cared about the characters. I cared about Klonona. I didn't care about the people I was saving, but I was interested in what was going on in the game. I was interested in that.
The remake also gives you the option during cutscenes to hold down one of the shoulder buttons to sort of fast forward it.
Oh.
So you can still see it and get the gist of what's happening, but you're not sitting through the entire because there are some pregnant pauses in this game. The cutscenes do kind of play out a bit slowly.
I am 100% buying this remake at some point on Steam. Probably $10. But
and you also get Klonona too.
Yeah, which I saw that, which I am really interested in because I now that I see how much easier they made it, I'm 100% on board that I really want to replay this again at some point. Probably won't be for at least a year to 2 years, but I want to replay it now.
Yeah,
because
I'm pretty excited to play the second one. I've a full confession, never actually played it at all.
Oh wow.
I didn't know it existed until not too long ago. So hey.
Yeah, no, I was one of the weirdos who was there like day one when that was released on PS2, and I was at a GameStop. I ran into a GameStop. Oh yeah, it was crazy because when that came out, I was working at an old magazine called Game Now, which only lasted for about 2 years. But we were It was a Ziff Davis publication. We were still in Oak Brook, Illinois, which is just right outside Chicago. But I was on a business trip. I was actually out in California in the San Francisco Bay Area. I was visiting LucasArts.
Oh.
I forget what they were showing. I forget what I was there for. Probably some Star Wars thing. But while I was out on this business trip, it just happened to be during the release date of Klonona 2. And I was so excited that after the day's events at LucasArts, I was back at my hotel. And it turned out that the hotel was relatively close to a mall up in Marin County. And I walked over to this mall and found a GameStop, and they had probably gotten like 2 or 3 copies of this game. So I grabbed one of their copies, and that was my big business trip expense, was buying a copy of Klonona 2 to play when I got back home a couple days later.
That's cool though.
But yeah, I was not going to miss out. I don't care if I was on a trip. I could not miss out on a new Klonona game.
Plus, it really is fun buying games on trips. Like I used to love doing this. Like when I went to Chicago with some friends. God, this is a few years ago, before COVID. And I remember I was like, I want to go to a local mall. They're like, what? I'm like, because they came there to, go sightsee. I'm like, we're going to a local mall, and I wanted to find a local GameStop just so I could browse a local GameStop. And this is probably 2019, so before the pandemic. But GameStop was not the same thing anymore. And there was something about going into random GameStops in other cities, especially back then, when you could find really random PS3 games or 360 games for dirt cheap that you just never know what you're going to find. And I miss that.
I love that you're not even going to like a little mom and pop shop.
Nope, just GameStop.
Yeah, just like the exotic foreign GameStop.
Hey, back then in 2018, 2019, or before then, GameStop used to have they would have really dirt cheap stuff that you might never I have a lot of Japanese anime games or something I would find this is $5, never heard of it before, let's buy it. What is it? Who knows? I'll never play it, but it's in my collection now. And that was what I used to love doing, but GameStop is terrible now. So,
do you now? Because I am originally from the Chicagoland area, so do you happen to remember which mall you had gone into?
Oh no, I just know it was ghetto. I can tell you that much. But no, I don't remember where we were.
Okay,
I'm from Milwaukee, so I went to Chicago a few times, but I can't remember where it was. It wasn't in downtown Chicago. We were away from there. I've been to the Vertical Mall in Chicago.
Oh, jeez.
A couple times, but there's no GameStop there or anything. I was in Chicago. I went with my wife. I think it might have been 2017. I went with my friend, but I went with my wife in 2018 or 2019, and we went to the Vertical Mall and a few other things.
Okay.
Yeah, 2019, because I already started the podcast. I was playing Majora's Mask on the train, so I remember that. But no, Chicago was awesome. When I went there, I went to the Navy Pier, and they got a Bob Newhart statue.
Oh man,
or a sculpture or something in Chicago. I want to say it's on the pier, Bob Newhart.
Really?
I'm pretty sure, because I remember I have a picture with it because I like Bob Newhart.
Oh, man. I mean, now, keep in mind, I have not lived in Illinois for probably about 25 years. So I grew up there, but it's been a long time since I've actually lived there.
It's a cool city. I want to visit more, because I went there last time. I did a few things. We saw the Bean. We went to Navy Pier, but I want to go back again. That's it. It's a cool city. But I just remember one of my Uber drivers, we went to Wrigley, is it Wrigley Field, right?
Yes.
And then we talked about the White Sox, and he's like, yeah, don't go there after night. He's like, don't go in that area after night. He's like, don't be there. It was just funny to me.
Now, wait, was it by Wrigley Field, or?
We went to the Cubs, where the Cubs play.
Okay, yeah, that's at Wrigley, yeah.
Okay, we went to the Cubs one, and then we were talking about going to White Sox, and the Uber driver was like, you don't go there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of on the south side of the city.
Yeah, he was like, don't go there at night. You won't be happy.
It's not the best neighborhood.
But no, I don't. I just remember being upset because the hotel I stayed at was across from the Trump Hotel at the time, and I didn't know that. And I got to the hotel, I'm like, fuck. And I looked up in the sky. So I just remember that too. But no, I want to go back to Chicago again.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to bring up Klonona again, but
so was I. I was going to bring up a little bit of trivia. I wasn't sure if you guys were aware of this, because now neither of you played the Wii remake. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. I didn't know it existed. So,
well, then you may not know then that because Namco. Well, was probably Bandai Namco at that point when that game was released. But when they announced it, they announced it as coming out in Japan, and then they announced that they were going to be bringing it to the West, and they were considering redesigning Klonoa for the North American release. And I don't know if this was if they were going to use the same redesign for a European release, but they Namco put out an image of the new Klonoa. They were going to give him a makeover.
Yeah, I did see this. Yeah, it looks very different.
Yeah, and his body looks the same, but they removed his hat. He doesn't have his iconic Pac-Man hat, and instead of having the long ears that kind of hang down, he has more like kind of like cat-like ears, where they're triangular but they're very large. They look almost like bat ears. Yeah,
like pointy, aren't they?
Yeah,
that's weird.
And it was such a weird idea that they felt that they had to I guess they were trying to make him look a little edgier, make him look a little cooler.
It was the time.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna sell some cute anime game to a bunch of dumb Americans, you gotta make it look cool. But the fans and the crazy thing is it wasn't really a bad design. He didn't look bad, but it was just like
not Klonona.
Why? Yeah. Why would you do that? You have
because he looks more like a teenager. I'm watching a video right now of like a more teenager Klonoa, where he's more of like a 12-year-old Klonoa in the PS1 game.
Yeah,
but that's part of the charm of it, is that he is a younger type character, and he's not edgy and I don't got time to rescue people like the way I was playing the game. Like I don't know. I don't like that. I mean, I'm watching it right now, and I'm like, no, I like the way he looks in the PS1.
Yeah. The fans sort of revolted and were like, no, we don't want this. So thankfully, Namco backed off on the sort of bat ear redesign, and they did kind of it. I think it seems like they sort of aged him up a little bit before the re-release, but they at least kept his old character design, which was good.
That's cool. And did the Wii release play without Waggle controls, I assume?
I hope. I don't remember it having waggle.
That's good.
But it's also been a long time since.
Well, yeah. I mean, this came out 2009. I mean, I remember Wii games being so cheap that I worked at a Target in 2009. I remember that so much shovelware crap.
Oh yeah.
Oh god. I don't think we didn't have. I mean, I worked at a Target, but yeah, we didn't have a copy of Klonoa. I did not. That would have something that would have stuck out because I spent a lot of time just reading back of games. So my job was boring because I worked at Target, and I couldn't leave electronics. So not exactly that much going on.
I don't know how big of a release it got. I can't imagine it was. They're not printing as many copies of that as they printed of Smash Brothers.
No, or the other shovelware crap. Oh, shovelware crap. They printed lots of weird $20 games. Shoot the chicken or something stupid shit I remember saying all the time. Oh god, I remember those sales, and I'll never forget. I try to every so often I'd be like, why don't you go to GameStop and buy this game? It's cheaper. And I said that a couple times. I really did not like my job. I was fired, but not for those reasons. But I always remember that. Okay, that's something curious. That's cool. I kind of want to. I'm watching it right now. The Wii, at least it looks really pretty too. The Wii version does look very pretty.
Oh yeah. Well, again, you're starting with a base game that looks as good as the PS1 version. You'd have to work hard to make Klonoa look ugly.
The thing that I want to talk about last is I want to talk about the final boss fight stuff and the ending of the story, because I think that's all pretty good. Like, you finally get to Gadius, whatever his name is, and I feel that I was a little surprised how long this fight was, because I did not, I'm like, okay, this is going to be the end of the game. I'm at the final boss, and in the first phase, you have him in like a circle thing where he's the galaxy behind you, and you're throwing enemies at him. And I like that fight a lot. But at the end of that fight, I said, okay, I beat the game. And I texted my friend. I'm like, Mike, I beat it. And the game's like, no, you didn't. But I thought it was cool because it had like 3 different phases of the fight, and I just thought it was a really cool fight where you throw things into his cloak, into the galaxy cloak.
Yeah,
I really liked that.
Yeah, you're in that. You're inside a giant rotating ring, so the ground is constantly shifting under you.
Yeah, and then he doesn't die like you thought he did. But it's a cool concept where people, I guess there were people that you rescued or that you had something to do with in each of the different areas that you fought in, who then join you and then operate cannons to, you have to grab, you have to grab Moos and throw the Moos in the cannon. So then once you load all the cannons, then they can shoot him and hurt him.
Yes.
It was a really cool fight, I felt.
Oh, yeah.
I wish that I'd finished playing the remake because I can only vaguely remember parts of the final boss fight.
That's what YouTube's for.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I mean, hey, that's not the end of the fight either. Like, again, so I texted my friend again, I beat the game again after the end of this fight. Nope, there's a third phase. Because I usually watch speedruns of games a lot of times before I beat, depending on the game. Like horror games, I watch a speedrun completely before I really touch a game, so I know what I'm getting myself into. With this game, I was watching speedruns up to where I was, and I would stop when I got to it. When I'd watch an area, then I would stop, do the area, then watch more. Okay. And when I got to the final boss, like I watched enough to know what to do. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to play the game. And then after I kept not finishing, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to watch the rest of this damn video to make sure how much I got left. Because you have a third phase where you fight a giant face in the background that looks terrifying with crystals. And I had a super hard time hitting those crystals. I just could not get the aim right for some reason.
Really?
Yeah, you shoot in the background, but I could not hit. I just kept missing. I'm like, what the hell is wrong with me?
Oh, man.
I mean, luckily, I just held down a button on my Steam Deck and reloaded it, but still, it was very annoying. I'm like, I missed time. Let's try again. And then you have a third phase of him. Or no, that was third phase. You have a fourth phase of him, like where you have to then load the cannons again, but this time he's destroying the ground you're standing in to keep running around or keep jumping around in a circle across the platforms and loading your cannon. But it's a cool concept that everybody's working together that you help to help you beat the final boss. Like I did like that a lot. It was a pretty cool boss fight, and I feel like it's something that's going to probably stick with me, and it was pretty memorable. Like I mean, I talk about in games like I really like boss fights and how I want, like I like memorable. This is one that was a very memorable final fight of this game. How it just kept going, but it made sense.
Yeah,
I mean he is a king of nightmares, so he's a nightmare. It makes sense. And you're having your friends that you made along the way helping you beat him.
Exactly. Or the world of dreams. And
then you beat him, and then you find out that Final Fantasy X wasn't the first game to have a ending about dreams and that you're not real. So this threw me for a loop because I knew nothing about this game because obviously it wasn't spoiled. And you find out that the guy that you're helping, Hupao, is like, yeah, you're not real. You're a dream. Everything you remember, I made it all up for you. None of this is real. It's like, I needed your help. And it's just kind of like, all I could think of was Final Fantasy X, where it's like, yeah, Titus, you're just a dream. You're not real. You don't exist.
Completely stolen from Klonona.
I can't believe that. I thought it was original. Nope, it was stolen from a PS1 game. But that works when your PS1 game isn't a huge seller and your Final Fantasy game is going to sell millions upon millions of copies.
Yeah.
So how did you overall rate your experience as a new player, Mike?
Oh, that's coming up next shortly. But to keep it brief, I'll do the shelf stacker box near the end of this. But I enjoyed it. I did have fun.
Yeah.
Good. I was interested to see it from kind of a new perspective. I can't imagine what it's like jumping in now because I've played it so many times.
It's still fun. It's hard. I mean, like I really want to play the remake now because the remake looks so much easier for me. That it would be easier to play, so that would be more fun for me personally. Because I don't like it when a game's really hard.
It's still pretty tough though.
Yeah, but the fact that I have that many checkpoints, it will keep me going. Like I played through Hollow Knight 2 recently earlier this year. Fuck, that's a good game. I had never played Hollow Knight until a friend of mine was like, you need to play it. I'm like, I don't want to play a 30-hour game for the show. And I did it, and I can't. That game was amazing. I didn't beat the White Palace, though. That White Palace broke me.
Oh.
So I'm sure Phil knows what I'm talking about. That freaking... Because you played Hollow Knight, right?
I've never played Hollow Knight.
You never have? I thought you were talking about it on your show before.
No.
Exaggerating. You're making up my own canon.
You know, I've tried Hollow Knight, and it didn't... I tried the first one, and it just didn't click with me.
Okay.
And I know a lot of people really, really love that game. But
the beginning is really hard.
Really?
It's once you get past the beginning of the game and you get the... I don't even remember if one of your early movement, it's not the double... You only double jump to way later, but you get like a dash, and then the game starts to make more sense, but it is a super challenging game at first.
Yes, I should go back and give it another try.
And watch videos.
Yeah, I mean, everyone loves it. I know it's super popular, and it just something about it just didn't grab me right away. So
I can get that. No, the White Palace is near the end of the Hollow Knight game. It's think of like Super Meat Boy platforming, but in a Metroidvania type of thing where it isn't. I was like, fuck this. This is too hard. And thank God it's all optional. It's all optional to get the true ending, but you don't have to do it. You can just say, okay, I beat the game, get my credits, and I'll be done. But no, I mean, I highly recommend go back to Hollow Knight. I recommend looking up videos about how to play or how to find some of the secret stuff early on, because it is a very challenging game, especially in the beginning when you're still understanding and you don't have a lot of tools at your disposal. Okay. Because I know you're a fan of Metrovanias.
Oh, absolutely.
But it doesn't have you don't have the leveling aspect really of like what I love about Metrovanias, like Castlevania stuff. I love leveling. You can't do that in Hollow Knight. I mean, you can to a degree, but not really. It's more skill based than memorizing patterns. But if you watch speedruns of it, or not speedrun, but if you watch videos about how what to do and when to do it, because in that game you can skip areas. I feel like you can skip areas and go places you really should not be at different times and get really screwed over. I loved Hollow Knight. It was an amazing experience, and there's also a glitch too where you can give yourself infinite health and you can't die. But so, I didn't do that. I thought about loading up, doing the glitch with a controller, and then playing through, and then finishing the game and doing the stuff I couldn't do. But I don't care enough. So, but yeah, no, I highly recommend it. All right, any else things you guys want to say about Klonona before we go on to? I have very few question memory comments.
Play it. Go and play it if you haven't played it.
Yeah.
That's all I got to say about that.
Just be ready for a game that is a fair bit tougher than it looks like it would be.
Yeah, I think that's also very fair. Very fair.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be a simple little kids game, but it gets tough.
Hey, remember that game for Super Nintendo called Lion King that was made for kids? Remember that game? I remember. That game is so damn hard. Okay, I have two comments from two different groups. One from the official Laser Time community. Joe M posted a tweet from May 09 from Matthew Perry. He says, about to try a new video game called Klonona. I'll let you all know how it is. I'm 39. I don't know why he shared that, but that's what he posted. So yeah, I guess that would have been the Wii release came out. So anyone curious, at some point Matthew Perry played Klonona. All right.
Like the guy from Friends?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Chandler Bing, who went on to do...
Hopefully he thought more of it than he thinks of Keanu Reeves.
Oh,
relevant comedy. That's what your listeners tune in for, right, Mike? Relevant.
Yeah, it works for me.
Yeah, good.
Good. Matthew Perry's a guy that probably I wouldn't even think of anymore. Yeah, he had he had Friends all those years ago, but I don't think he's done anything really since then. So.
You know who has been doing stuff since then though? Keanu Reeves.
Yeah. He's done a lot. Yeah, why would you even? Yeah, the last film Matthew Perry was in 2009. Wow. Yeah, he's been in TV shows, I guess, here and there, but yeah, that was the last movie he's been in.
Yeah.
I feel like I remember him in an episode of Scrubs once.
Yes, 2004. Yes, he was in Scrubs. One episode. My Unicorn. He's on random stuff here and there. I was looking up now that someone brought him up. I'm looking him up. Yeah, he was also in nothing else that I ever watched or care. But yeah. No, why the hell is he making fun of Keanu Reeves? Keanu Reeves just seems like a good person too.
Exactly.
I don't think Matthew Perry's that. I feel like there's stuff that came out that Also, why the hell did that That's all someone can comment. Okay, the one other comment I have, the one real comment from I watched the entire Orblood Super Replay from Quentin Crow. Tremendously underrated series. Gameplay and graphics were simple yet stunning, and the music still haunts me to this day. It was a literal miracle we received a remake of both earlier this year. Yeah.
I am shocked that we've gotten remakes of it, yeah.
I am too. I figured it was just a game that people loved that I just didn't know anything about, but the more I talk with you guys and stuff we've been doing, it just was a game that nobody just wasn't loved the way it should have been.
I think that's the main thing I probably think of when I think of Klonona, that it's a great game, but above it being a great game, it's also a criminally underrated game. And I think, like we've said multiple times here, it still holds up really well. Obviously, you can play the remaster, but in terms of what it actually is and was, I still think it holds up really well. And I think I genuinely can say that I had just as much fun, if not more fun, playing this than the big name platformers of the day.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I can say I enjoyed this more than I enjoyed Super Mario 64 when I played that. So hey, I played that earlier this year, and I did not have a good time with that game. Oh, and there is a translation of the GBA one on the internet.
Oh,
So
there you go.
I might have to check that out. I feel like I've got a stack of Klonona games to play after this remake now.
yeah, I mean, there's a GBA game that's a side scroller I want to play now. There's an RPG. There's the RPG now, which I'm actively looking up how to get my hands on so I can play it.
And
Because
the beach volleyball. Don't
I was
forget
just
the
going to
beach
say, are we
volleyball.
having a beach volleyball party, Klonona beach volleyball party sometime, or is that going to happen? Or
it's not Dead or Alive. I'm not interested if it's volleyball. It gotta be Dead or Alive. That game. I really enjoyed that game when I was younger.
Really?
Oh.
I did. Me and my girlfriend at the time played it all the time. She really liked it too.
Now the Klonona volleyball game that did get a European release.
Yeah. I
That's
remember
cool.
that one being like. I remember seeing that one in the PlayStation magazines.
Yeah, we
here
never
in
got
time.
that in the US.
I hate when they do that.
I know, right?
I mean, you bring it. I mean, I get it. Like, I know it's not, that's some. But if you have a game and released in Europe, you already have, ways like just bring it here at that point.
Yeah, I mean, you did the translation and everything.
Yeah.
Vid Ribbon was the same way. There was I don't know if you've ever played the PS1. It's a rhythm game. Called,
I've seen it played. I haven't played it myself, but I've seen it played.
yeah, it's the one with kind of the vector graphics, rabbit running along the line, like a line, and it was designed by Saya Matsuura, who is the guy who did Parappa the Rapper and Jammer Lammy. But it was a great little game. Originally came out in Japan, got a European release, but was never released in the US.
I think that's another one that's pretty expensive now, isn't it?
Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
It's great though. That's if you like rhythm games. It's short, but it's quite good. But it did have a gimmick where you could pop in any CD and it would generate levels based on the songs on the CD.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Man, you're reminding me of the Dance Factory game for PS2 that prompted. That's what it said it did.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I had it. I bought it the day it came out, and I played it like once. It wasn't very good. But yeah, that was one thing I remember it could do. Is you could put random CDs in, and it would and you would get out your dance pad for like DDR, and you could then play that. And I remember I bought the soundtrack for Final Fantasy 7 and 10-2 so I could dance to that music, which me and my girlfriend at the time never did, but I own it somewhere. So, there's my okay. And right now I'm trying to get Klonona to work on an emulator. I can try it out because I really want to play that now. You completely got my interest. That's going to be my goal for today is to make that work.
Excellent.
I want to play it on my Steam Deck and Klonona RPG now.
Yeah, I've got a remake to finish.
All right. And that brings us to our last section, Shelf Stacker Box. Shelf being something you really like, stack being something you like, but not as much, and then box being something you disliked. And I'll go first. I'm going to put, I came into this game with no expectations. I had no idea what I was getting myself into or what I was going to think. And I had a lot of fun. I had a lot more fun than I thought I would playing this game because it just wasn't, I didn't think it would be for me. I mean, platformers are not my thing, but I'm going to put this version in the stack because it was too challenging for me, but it was still really fun. And I had a great time. And now I'm interested in a series that I had no expectations I didn't care about at all. Now I care about this. Now I actually care about this series for the first time. So nice. I find that impressive that I care about it. So
cool.
So yeah, I'm definitely going to play more. I'm at some point now I want to play Klonona 2 and I'm going to be making this work later today so I can play the translator round. So the GBA. So he's going on the stack. What about you, Ben?
I've kind of got this game, a physical copy of this game, so you probably guess for me. I'd probably go as far as to say it's probably my favorite platformer from the PlayStation. I wouldn't dream of saying that it is the best because obviously everybody's different. But yeah, for me, I just think it's got the perfect balance of visuals, music, nice story to follow along with, some really memorable characters. And yeah, as I said a few times, it still really holds up, and I definitely recommend that if you want to play it, then go ahead for the remake because it's about as close to the original as a remake could be. So yeah, I love this game.
Okay. And what about you, Phil?
Oh, absolutely. Put it on a shelf. Put it on a dedicated shrine with all the other Klonona games. I love me some Klonona. Always have, always will. Pretty much all the reasons you guys have talked about. Yeah, it's It's definitely one of the best 32-bit platformers around back in the day, and yeah, it still holds up. Definitely holds up. So, highly recommended from me.
Okay. All right. And Phil, where can people find you at?
Oh my goodness gracious! Well, I do, as you mentioned earlier, I'm a co-host of the Player One podcast, weekly show that we have been doing for golly. Are we coming up on year 15 at this point?
That's a long time.
It's been a lot. Oh boy, has it been a long time. We are recording our 835th episode later this evening. So you can find me at the Player One Podcast, playeronepodcast.com, or if you want to, well, I don't know how long Twitter's going to last. But, I'm Whimsical Phil over on the Twitters for whatever that means these days. But yeah, you can find me there for now.
My guess is if it fails, like it's working at the moment at the time of this recording, that somebody else will take over.
Oh gosh, let's hope something gets straightened out.
I am enjoying watching the train wreck of this all happening. It's a very momentum of don't put your money where your mouth is, and maybe you shouldn't open your mouth sometime because like. Yeah, I think from the sound of it, he bought Twitter for $44 billion when it wasn't worth that.
Right. It definitely feels like the dog finally catching the car that it's been chasing and not knowing what to do with it, and it might just get run over.
Like when one of the comments that was made that made me laugh, like, oh, you can't support this through just advertising alone. It's like that's how TV works, and so many other things are supported by advertising alone. Like you can do it. I mean, you're just stupid. So. I mean, same idea like when, Warner Brothers Discovery, they bought each other, and they're like, okay, now we have to figure out how we can get rid of all this stuff to make money. Like, yeah, stupid people. All right. And Ben, where can people find you at?
As we mentioned at the top of the episode, the reason we are sort of acquainted with one another is because I made global headlines when I wrote the only English walkthrough for overblood2.com. So if you fancy getting weird, then you can find me at overblood2.com on social media at Ben Speight.
Oh, right. And if you enjoyed this episode, we have over 400 other episodes you to go listen to in our giant catalog of games my mom found. Unfortunately, no other Klonona yet. So there will be more at some point. At this point, I can pretty much say that. And so definitely go check out. We do movies, comics, video games. I do whatever the hell I want to do. Just go check out our giant catalog. I want to give a shout out to my awesome intro and outro, courtesy of Helena at Hell Hasphere. You can follow her on TikTok. She made our wonderful music, so definitely go check her out. Also want to give a shout out to my buddy Bill Tucker, who started the MCU movies with me. So and he started his own podcast, Gamer Looks at 40. So definitely go check him out. He did all the reviews with me, and he's on the show quite often. And we do have a Patreon. If you want to help support the show, as little as $1, you can go vote in our Patreon poll. Our current poll is what Christmas movie is not a Christmas movie should we cover? And there are 4 options for you to check from: Ghostbusters 2, Lethal Weapon, Gremlins, or Batman Returns.
Ooh.
So that you get to decide which one of those we're going to cover.
I know.
Right now
vote.
It's tied.
I know which one would be my vote.
And we also have a Discord. You can join our Discord and chat with us. And please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and on YouTube. You can find us on YouTube, but audio only. And I think that's everything I need to say. So we will see you guys all next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.